I fainted like 10 minutes after the first beginning of the movie.
The devil made her did it, I bet.
This case was made into one of the greatest horror movies of all time.
I passed out.
This poor kid is terrified, and so's the rest of the family.
The demon said to me, "You can't get rid of us. You're not strong enough."
Let's take a look at some of the most shocking real-life exorcisms, starting with a tragic case that inspired a movie.
For the glory of God.
We're talking about Annalise Michel.
Annalise's family was more religious than most. Her parents forced her and her three sisters to go to Catholic Mass twice a week.
She was diagnosed with epilepsy as a teen and started taking medication.
That's when Annalise's condition got worse.
Soon after, she began exhibiting bizarre and dangerous behavior.
Her family claimed she would rip off her clothes in a frenzy, eat coal and spiders, and urinate on the floor and lick it up.
With nowhere to turn, her terrified parents sought help from the church. Two priests, Renz and Alt, said that Annalise was possessed and began performing exorcisms on her.
Over the next 10 months, Renz and Alt would perform 67 exorcisms on Annalise.
During these, she experienced thrashing seizures and hallucinations.
Eventually, she stopped eating because she said she was not permitted to anymore.
At the time of her last session, Annalise was 23 years old and only 66 pounds.
This abuse, along with a lack of medical treatment and food or water, took a toll on her body, and she died at home on July 1st, 1976.
The priests were charged with negligent homicide, but maintained that they had done nothing wrong.
Renz and Alt, throughout the case, maintained that Annalise was possessed, and that her death had finally freed her.
They received 6 months in jail.
Annalise's parents received no punishment, as the German legal system deemed they had experienced enough suffering.
Many believe Annalise simply didn't get the help she needed for her debilitating epilepsy. Next, the famous case of Ronald Doe, on which The Exorcist was based.
William Peter Blatty based his book on the real-life trauma of a young boy who had been alternately referred to as Roland Doe.
Described as quiet, Ronald was close to his aunt.
During the summer of 1948, she reportedly taught young Roland how to properly use a Ouija board.
After she passed away, eerie phenomenon began to follow him.
Strange noises, objects moving without being touched, and muffled voices talking.
His parents were advised to bring him to a priest who performed several exorcisms. And that's when things got much worse.
Something inside of him has given him unnatural strength and rage.
His family felt hopeless.
Roland purportedly habitually spat at and demeaned the priests, propositioned them for sexual favors, and threatened them with acts of violence.
Finally, a priest suggested baptism.
After resisting the priest, eventually Roland was baptized and accepted the communion wafer.
His symptoms quickly stopped, and unlike our next subject, Ronald went on to live a happy life and died in 2020. The most extreme story of an exorcism is that of Michael Taylor, a butcher from England.
31 years old, father to 5 children, and husband to Christine.
After joining a local church, Michael changed.
The shift in his personality was disturbingly drastic.
Things continued to escalate when he attacked a preacher.
A local vicar called on a group of ministers and declared that Michael was currently suffering from demonic possession and would need an exorcism.
One October night, they brought him in.
Michael was subjected to an exorcism, which lasted 7 hours.
Exhausted, they eventually sent him home.
The priest said the exorcism would have to be finished at a later date and advised Michael not to worry.
But Michael was not okay. When he got home, he viciously killed his wife with his bare hands.
Michael had brutally attacked Christine, removing her eyes and tongue, before setting about trying to rip the skin off of her skull.
Police patrolling the area found him.
Shambling through the streets, completely naked, covered with blood.
Michael was acquitted on grounds of insanity, but many wonder if the church had failed him.
At trial, the defense attorney laid blame squarely at the feet of the prayer group and the priest who did the exorcism.
Others assume his murderous behavior was due to a psychotic break.
Michael received psychiatric care, although his final diagnosis, assuming there was one, does not appear to be publicly known.
Do you think demonic possession is real, or are these all just simply cases of untreated mental illness?